What's up, and welcome back into the Doncast Podcast about Dons, hosted by a Don, featuring Dons, and produced by Dons. I'm your host, Adam Jahns, class of 2001. I'm a sports writer for The Athletic. You can read my stuff on theathletic.com. Follow me at Adam Jahns on Twitter if you like. This episode's producers are Danny Berg, class of 23, and Jack Dennis, class of 24. They do fantastic work as always. We got a special guest today. He's a YouTube star. I don't know if he likes that description, but he is. If he has 1 million followers on YouTube, I think that qualifies. Alex Palmeri, class of 2000. Class of 2002. We're getting old here. Alex from LegitStreetCars on YouTube. What's going on?
Not much. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
When you started that YouTube channel, did you ever think you'd hit 1 million subscribers?
Absolutely not. And I think that's kind of like cliche at this point for YouTubers to say that, but it's definitely true. I started the channel on a whim as just a hobby, and it took off. But it took a while though. It wasn't like some of these channels blow up in a year or two. This took me like about 6 years. So it wasn't.
Our podcast, Hogan Johns, has 13,000 followers, and we're kind of proud of that because we started on Spotify and WGN radio for a bit. So we're proud of the 13,000. I can imagine 1 million and what that means.
I mean, that's a lot to be proud of. 13,000, a lot of people, especially in the world of podcasting. It's like a different platform, So every platform kind of has such a different ecosystem. You see people on TikTok a few years ago, they would get millions of followers in like a year, and that was normal. But then the competition sets in, So yeah, that 13 on podcasts is great.
I'll take your compliment too. Thank you.
That's really good. I'd love to start a podcast with that.
Let's start with the beginning. How did it start in 2016 when you launched this website, but or your YouTube channel? But even before that, where did you get into cars? Where does that love affair with cars begins for you?
It begins as a little kid. So I'd been into cars forever. My mom would tell me stories that I'd be sitting by the window watching cars drive by when I was like 3 or 4 years old. So I was always into them. And then when I went into high school, I'm like, I kind of started thinking sophomore year, what do I want to do with myself later? And it was, I wanted to be a car mechanic. That's it. I just always imagined I would work on cars, and I was completely happy with that. So I didn't know anything about cars. And I grew up primarily in my high school years in a household, with my 2 sisters and my mom. My dad wasn't around, so I wasn't really exposed to any of this at all. I didn't have any car uncles or anything like that. But I just knew that I wanted to work with cars. So at 15, I bought a 1988 Pontiac Firebird that was a complete pile of garbage, and it broke down in the Notre Dame parking lot on multiple occasions. And everybody would make fun of me as I'm having this thing towed out of there. But I bought that car just to learn, and then I bought another one a year later. I sold that one, and I just took the engine apart because I'm like, I didn't even know where the oil went. I knew nothing. And I just, this was before, the internet was around obviously, but it wasn't as what it is now. And I had a friend's dad at that point that saw kind of that I was into it, and he wasn't a mechanic either, but he was like, hey, I'll help you, so he kind of helped out. And that kind of started my love affair with cool cars. And then at that point I decided, I need to find a tech school. So right when I graduated Notre Dame in 2002, about 2 weeks after, I went out to Laramie, Wyoming, and started at a school called Wyotech. And it was a 12-month program on automotive. So it had a 9-month general automotive element to it. And then 3 months was like high performance, cool stuff. And I got hired before I even graduated. After the 9 months, Mercedes-Benz of Chicago hired me as an apprentice, and so then they waited for me to graduate. And I was top of my class. It was totally different for me out there. I was kind of just in the zone on something I always loved, and I knew I didn't know anything, and I was at a big disadvantage. And it's in the middle of Wyoming, so a lot of these country boys, they grew up on farms with their dads teaching them how to work on stuff. But I didn't know, I didn't know that. So I kind of just honed in, didn't make too many friends, to be honest with you, out there. I just kind of studied. And it was funny, they nicknamed me the OA, the overachiever, which was actually a play on my name. So my name, when I went to Notre Dame, my last name was different. It was Apis. as you probably remember, Adam.
Yeah.
And the long story short, my dad left, so I didn't. And then before we had my son, I decided to change my name to my mom's maiden name. So, just to pass down the family name that kind of like raised me. But anyway, at the time they would nickname me OA. So I did really well. Mercedes hired me and I started working at the dealer at the age of 18. And then, it just kind of took off from there.
Before I ask you more about cars, what is Wyoming like? You're the only person I know that has been in the state of Wyoming.
Well, let me tell you, if you want to go somewhere to just study and do
Wyoming's
well in
the place.
school, there's not much to do. Especially if you're like a broke, college kid, like there's just nothing. It's beautiful. There's a lot of wilderness and stuff like that. But like, there were plenty of tech schools in Chicago, but I'm like, you know what? I just want to get out of here and just go somewhere where I can, just focus. But a friend of mine ended up going there too, and not from Notre Dame, but we would go out, out to Colorado and stuff on the weekends, and it was cool, but I honestly didn't care. I was like, I got 12 months. I'm essentially not going to a 4-year college at this point. That decision's made. I'm like, let me just really make this efficient and hone in, and so I just studied a lot out there.
Our group of friends crossed paths a bit in high school. Mm-hmm. That car you had, like how much time did you like spend on it before you went out and about, like after school, before school, on the weekends? Like, go ahead.
I would show up to Notre Dame with like dirty hands from being up till 2:00 in the morning trying to get this stupid engine to work. Like I was obsessed, I just needed to figure it out, and I blew the engine up. I had no idea what I was doing, and a lot of my time was spent doing that, and just all my free time essentially outside of when we would see each other on the weekends and whatnot.
So then, like, let's flash forward here to 2016. You launched this YouTube channel. Like, what were your expectations at that point? Do you remember doing your first video? What was it like?
Yeah. So basically, by 2016, I had left Mercedes. So I worked there for 10 years. I was a master certified journeyman technician at Mercedes, and then I moved on to the city of Chicago. So I started as a heavy duty diesel mechanic for the city, and then I became the shop foreman. And working for a big municipality, it's just kind of boring. You're working on the same stuff over and over again. Nothing's really that challenging, And so I thought I was losing my knowledge being there. It became repetitive. So I'm like, I want to keep up on this. It's still my hobby. The car I have behind me, my white Trans Am, I bought when I was 18. I bought that 2 days after I started my job with Mercedes as like a gift to myself. And I still have it. And I was still working on it and racing it and stuff. And that kept my brain like functioning in the world of automotive. So I'm like, why don't I take this, to the next level? And I just simply wanted to make a video on how to install larger brakes on a Trans Am. And I'd been all over the forums online for years, back when forums were a thing. And everybody would share information. I thought it was great. And I'm like, why don't I just make a video and show everybody how to do these brakes? Because I know I'm going to get a million questions if I post up pictures and all that kind of stuff. So my very first video was actually just me filming a Mustang that my buddy bought. But my second video was doing the brakes on this. And it got so many good positive comments. Like I had just shortcutted everybody's like job. Like everybody now knew exactly what parts, what the links, everything was spelled out for them in a video. If they followed the video, at the end of it, they would have big, gigantic brakes on their Trans Am or their Camaro. And that was my goal. And everybody was like, thank you so much. This is so great. You should do more of these. And I'm like, okay, well, what do I know like the most about? And it was, at the time, it was still Mercedes. I'd been a tech for 10 years. So I'm like, all right, let me try that. I put out some videos on, a lot of my earlier videos that did well were on cars that would go to the dealership and get a big estimate. And then I would fix them at my garage for like 10% of the estimate. And I'd be like, dealers can be kind of a ripoff. I mean, we all kind of know that. They're expensive, So I showed people how to fix their Mercedes at home without getting ripped off at the dealer. And those are the videos that really blew up. Now I'm legitimately saving people thousands of dollars. So they started to hit the subscribe button, and it kind of just grew from there.
I was going to say, when did you get a sense that like, oh man, I'm on to something now? It's the comments, it's the subscriber totals, it's just the feedback.
Dude, I got to say, it took a while because in the world of YouTube, you don't make any money until you really have a lot of views and a lot of subscribers and stuff like that. So it was difficult. Like when I put out my first video, my second kid was just born. So we had 2 kids under the age of 2, and I was working like an afternoon or a midnight shift for the city. So my wife thought I was nuts because I would get up early in the morning to film these videos, and I was losing money on them. I made nothing. But it took a while for me to realize like this could become something, like probably a couple of years before I was like, okay, maybe this can become a real job, but I still held on to my city job for a long time. I did YouTube for 5 years, putting out a video every single week for 5 years while working the city job full-time. So I worked the last few years of working my full-time job. I probably worked like 100 hours a week between filming the videos and going to my other, real job, quote unquote, to pay the bills. But yeah, I wanted a couple years of like positive income stream that could replace my city job before I took the plunge. At that point, I had 3 kids now. So I'm like, I can't just do this and have fun, So I highly recommend any young guys watching, if you want to, do something crazy like YouTube or social media influencing, do it or as early as humanly possible, where you can take that chance.
How comfortable did it take you, or how long did it take you, I should say? How long did it take you to get comfortable being on camera, being a star, being a spokesperson for yourself and walking yourself through things you do every day for your job, but actually articulating it to people watching at home?
You know what? It didn't take as long as you'd think. I was nervous for a long time, but what really helped me kind of speed things along was when I was working the full-time job and doing the videos, I was on such a tight time schedule. Like I only had a few hours a day to film and in between kids and going to work. So I would get nervous filming outside of my garage because this all started in my home garage. And a lot of times I'd film in my driveway, but people would be walking their dogs. People would be walking around. I would get super nervous. Like these people are looking at me, this weirdo filming, like, what is he doing? But I realized that if I waited for everybody to walk by and waited for the audience to essentially go away, for my nerves to calm down, I would never get anything done. So then I started getting like almost kind of, it felt like a challenge to me. I'm like, I'm so nervous right now that I don't care, bring it on. So I would just go out there, and I just put it in my head that I'm going to force myself to not care. And that's how I was able to actually come out with the videos, because there was always, the neighborhoods, around Notre Dame and stuff. There's always people. So yeah, it was, I don't know, maybe I still always felt nervous outside doing that kind of stuff, but probably within a year I was like, hey, I don't care. You guys want to come over and watch, ask questions, whatever, I got to film this video. So I kind of turned that really nervous feeling into a challenge, essentially.
Where's this job?
But now I feel
yeah. Where's this job like taking you? I saw one video of yours. You're in Indiana, and I forget the name of the car you're buying, but look like you're having a blast just looking at his car collection in this massive garage. So I'm curious.
Yes.
I mean, you've already been in Wyoming. Where else has this job taken you in pursuit of cars?
Well, so a lot of my video series start with an abandoned car that could be anywhere in the country, and the best series for me that is me flying out there and seeing if I can get these cars to run and drive all the way back home to Chicago. And so, I've flown a bunch of times just one way with a backpack full of tools, and with a car I've already paid for sight unseen, total gamble. But I've been to, New Jersey. Recently, one of my trucks I got sponsored by eBay Motors. So I built a truck for eBay. It's my truck, but I built it for their show. And then, so that one they took the truck on a semi truck to 15 cities all the way around the country. So I went to 2 of them. So one was in Michigan, one was in Los Angeles. So I went out there just to stand by my truck and tell people about the build. But I've been to, a bunch of other states to pick up cars, just all over the place. Florida multiple times, California, just all over, like right now I'm booking a trip to Fargo, North Dakota, which ironically I went to last year to pick up a secret new project car. That's a very famous movie. It's very secretive, but people could probably guess if they really watch my videos, but it's a childhood dream car. And if you're around our age, people might be able to figure out what that is, but
That's why I have to remind everybody to check out your YouTube channel, LegitStreetCars. Check that out later. Like, I was going to ask you, like, obviously that project is probably going to replace favorite past projects, but I guess up to this point, we're talking on July 13th, about 2:20 p.m. in the afternoon. Like, what is your favorite project thus far, and what's your least favorite, maybe most frustrating project so far?
That is tough, Adam, because like my channel is built around, I don't follow any trends whatsoever in the automotive industry as far as what cars to buy. I simply just buy the cars that I've always wanted. So a lot of them fit in that 80s, 90s, 2000 time frame. There have been a lot of favorites, and a lot of them I keep on. Now I'm starting a collection where before I would sell the cars, a couple months after the video series was done. But now I'm like, I really like this car. It's been a dream car of mine forever. It's tough to say my favorite car. I mean, I'd say up there for sure would be my Buick Grand National. Is a really cool car I've always wanted forever, and I picked that up last year. It was abandoned in a storage locker in Wisconsin for 10 years, and we drove up to that one with a backpack full of tools. I fixed it in the parking lot of a auto parts store for 8 hours and drove it all the way back to Chicago, and I've made it like absolutely perfect. And so that's a car I'm keeping pretty much forever. Some of the least favorite projects I've had are cars that I've bought because it was just an impulse. I didn't really want the car that much. And you can tell if you're not passionate about something. Like there was an Audi, a 90s Audi that was abandoned. It looked kind of cool. I got it. I'm like, yeah, I don't like it. I'm not into it. So a car like that, I'm just honest with the viewers. I'm like, hey guys, we made a couple videos on this. I'm not going to restore this entire car. I'm moving on, and that's it. I actually just did that yesterday. I traded a guy for a car that I wasn't into, that we'd traveled to New Jersey and drove 800 miles back home. So not all of them live forever, but
Any moments or experiences where you fix the car, let's say in New Jersey, you're driving home, and then, oh no, here we are in Ohio. It's not working as well as we want. But
that happens a lot.
Back out. Yeah.
Yeah. I've had to make a lot of on the road repairs, and that's what makes the videos fun. Everybody's like, why don't you just trailer it back like a normal person and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, that's the adventure. That's the video series. Like that initial, can we make it home? It's such a challenge. It's such a thrill. Anything can happen. There was a car we bought that I've been working on today. I bought it in Kansas in January. And this thing, it's literally 0 degrees out without the wind chill. So it's like minus whatever. And this thing started to break down in the middle of, I think we were in Kansas at this point, but it was freezing. And I'm like, I don't know what we're going to do. Like, this is a very rare Mercedes. We're not going to find any parts anywhere. There's no tool you could have to fix this car on the side of the road.
This is the end of the YouTube channel right here.
Yeah, I'm like, it was funny. I was with my editor. This was my first trip with my editor. So like for the last couple of years, I've had a full-time editor here. Before I would do it all myself, but I took him on our first trip, and I'm like, hey man, just to let you know, you've seen my videos before. Anything goes. I don't know exactly what day we'll be back, but I plan on being home. We'll just leave a few days open, and we're sitting there, and this thing is just about to. It's dying. It's shaking on us, and it's 0 degrees, and we didn't bring really much. We thought this was going to be kind of smooth sailing. So. And I'm like, dude, we're gonna die in the middle of nowhere. At this point, it's like the next gas station is like 30 miles away. I'm like, we're gonna have to be on the side of the road, waving people down. And we limped it to a gas station. The car shut down a bunch of times, and it was water, and we had filled up with a bad tank of gas, which in the middle of the country is kind of common in the middle of the winter. Because this car takes 93 octane, and sports cars aren't coming out. Those are the cars that need that kind of fuel. So the fuel sits in the tanker forever and gets water in it. So that's what I thought it was. So I went in the gas station. I bought a can of this stuff that you can buy that like basically absorbs the water, and it fixed it, and we made it. But then it broke down like 3 other times. It started leaking all this stuff. It was horrible, and we barely limped this thing home at night into my garage in Chicago, and it was the craziest adventure. And that's like kind of the fun. That's a lot of people tune in for that.
Adventure is a great word to use there.
Yep.
For students watching this, like what type of advice would you give them if they're interested in cars, if they want to be a mechanic, or if they're interested in YouTube and social media, for someone who has the success that you have, like, what's your best advice?
Yeah, well, they're two totally different things. So I'll start with just if you want to work with cars in general, like whether you want to work at a dealership as a mechanic or a service writer or something or a salesman, start early and make sure you're getting trained by someone you really trust. You know, that was one thing I realized at the dealer. It's very cutthroat. Everything is commission based, you know, so it's tough to find those people that will really help you if you're young, because you're essentially going to be taking from them. So you're working with kind of a bunch of people, and unless the shop is really loaded up, it's kind of a little competitive. So make sure it's something you're super passionate about. One thing I've kind of started to tell, I get a lot of emails from, you know, younger people that ask me that question. I don't think gasoline cars will be around for a whole nother 30 or 40 year career of fixing them. So I'm telling a lot of people to learn about electric vehicles. Diesel is a good one to get into because that'll be around for a very long time, but normal gasoline commuter cars are going to be going away. And then electric cars, they don't break nearly as often. So I see in the next like 15 years, there being a massive reduction in the need of mechanics because of electric cars. So something to consider. Like I got in 2000 and I started in 2003 and we're good, right? But starting now and trying to get a full career out of working on normal gasoline cars, I don't know if it's going to happen. But as far as social media stuff, even if it's not cars, if it's whatever, make sure it's something that you truly love doing and that you would do for free, because most people don't ever make any money in social media. And it's just how it is. The competition is insane. And it might just not work, you know, just whatever the reason may be, it just might not work. And so you gotta start it off for a couple of reasons with something you love. First off, because it might not make you any money. But secondly, people can read that passion. Like I truly live and breathe cars. Like since I was a kid, it's all I think about, you know, outside of my family and everything. But like, you know, I love it. And I think it comes through in the videos because it is very real. And so people sometimes go down the social media path of following trends to get views. And that is a bad idea. Like you have to really be into what you're doing, because there's other people out there that are, and people will, you know, most communication is nonverbal. People will understand that you're not really into it, you know? Yeah. So
you have to be yourself too. That's one thing I've learned doing what I am. Don't be afraid to show your personality a bit, and don't try to be someone you're not.
And I think that works pretty much in every, you know, every kind of career, but especially in ones where you're trying to, just like you, people have to like you at the end of the day, right? Because if they don't, you're not going to be on TV. You're not going to be on YouTube. If you have, you know, but you can't fake that because there's too many people out there that can do it naturally. So you have to almost just fit into the role, and if it doesn't work out, you just have to know that, you know, it is very rare, you know, to kick something like this off. But for me, it was working a lot. Like, I mean, 100 hours a week for roughly 5 years to make this happen. And there was always that chance it didn't. So like, you know, it's a lot of people follow social media and they think it's easy, and people you only see the good stuff, but it is very difficult, you know?
All right. 2-part question for you. As someone who does ad reads, how long did it take you to do, or to get comfortable again with ad reads and maybe selling a product? Like I've done some Manscaped ones. I've done some Blue Chew ones to get some laughs out there. Yeah. Those can be a bit awkward at times, you know, for a healthy young man. You've done Manscaped too?
Oh yeah, that was like the weirdest. That was the first weird one I got, and like all my YouTube friends were doing it, but I'm like, my channel is very family friendly, you know, like there's no swearing. You could watch it with, you know, your 6-year-old kid, whatever. And I'm like, come on, Manscaped, we know what that is. And so I told Manscaped, I was like, hey, I'm just going to, I'll do this, but I'm going to present this as just a shaver. I'm not going to say anything else. and they were okay with it. And that went well. But like, honestly, I don't mind. I like doing the ad reads. I stopped kind of trying to make the transition like absolutely perfect. A lot of people put a ton of effort into that. And I'm like, I'm working on cars, so not everything works well. Like, how do you get into a shaver when you're working on a car? So then I just started purposely making it kind of corny, and I would pick some, I don't know, there'd be like a sharp edge on a car and be like, wow, look at how sharp that edge is. Just like the sharp edge on my Manscaped razor, whatever. And it's like, clearly that's not, it's just a joke,
But they like that too. If you're watching this or listening to Alex and I talk about this, the Manscaped ads, they're meant to be a bit funny and a bit inappropriate.
Some people go crazy.
Yeah, I mean, you hear them on ESPN 1000, like with Waddle and Sylvie. You're meant to have fun with them, but I remember when I first started reading them, and I'd be at home, and I have 3 sons, and I'm still young at heart. I couldn't get through some of these without laughing. It'd take me like 10 or 12 tries. I'm not exaggerating. Usually it's like 1 or 2 tries, and the ad read is done, but 10 or 12 tries to get through these ads without laughing at myself for reading them.
Well, okay, so with your stuff is all pre-recorded, right, for the most part?
Yeah, there's some live reads we do if we're doing live shows, but in terms of our showing how the sausage is made, some of them are pre-recorded, and we just inject them into the show at certain breaks. So we'll record them, and we'll inject our own personality at times to give someone, a peek behind the curtain there. But some of them are quite funny or even quite a bit ridiculous, as much as we love our subscribers and our our advertisers. Let's be honest, we thank you for supporting our show and whatnot, but we have fun with it, and we're young at heart, so we laugh and whatnot.
No, that's good. I couldn't imagine doing anything like that live. All of mine are obviously like I can hit stop and take a million takes, and I do sometimes, but most of the stuff I promote, like I'd say half of it is car related, so that's kind of easy. Yeah, like detailed products or whatever. But the other half are like this morning I filmed one for Code Monkey, which is a online kids coding website, and I'd already filmed the entire video I didn't know for sure they were going to be the sponsor, so I just filmed a video, and then I have to go back with my editor and find a spot to cut it in that makes sense, and it's like sometimes it's so bad that it's good.
Yeah. Just go with it. People remember it, and I think that's what they want.
Yeah, exactly. So, but that's I mean, that's another thing with social media that's important to get sponsors. Like, especially if you have high overhead, like a car channel, you need the sponsors. Basically.
Your car collection, what does it consist of, and what's your everyday car?
Okay, so that changes every few months. Like my daily driver. I did daily drive 2 Teslas for the last few years. I really like the Teslas, but no one else in the car community likes Teslas. They're not enthusiast friendly. So right now I'm driving a Cadillac CTS V station wagon, which is like one of only like 150 in this color. It's kind of rare. In the world of cars, station wagons are cool. The general public doesn't think that in America, but car guys love station wagons, and so do I. I have 2 of them. I have 2 like 700 horsepower station wagons. They're ridiculous. So I drive one of those. One of my latest projects that I've been driving a lot is a very normal and common white Chevy Express van. It's a 15-passenger van that you see every contractor and every church has one, but I made mine have 700 horsepower, and it does big smoky burnouts, and it's ridiculous. And it sounds awesome, but it looks like a total sleeper. It's got dents and missing paint everywhere. So that's a cool project we did, but I have a lot. I think I have like 15 or 16 cars. One of the most interesting ones I have right now is I have a one-of-one concept van that was built. It cost over $2 million to build it, and the company went out of business. They were trying to get a government loan like back in 2009 recession time for $450 million, and they built this thing to get 100 miles per gallon. It's this really cool-looking van, and they didn't get the loan. Tesla got the loan. Fisker Karma got the loan. And so they went under, and this thing got lost in a warehouse. So it's stored indoors. It's pristine. And then it ended up on Facebook Marketplace. And I bought it from a friend of mine who bought it off Facebook Marketplace for $1,500. So I have this probably $3 million concept vehicle. I'm staring at it right now. It's on the channel. And it is insane. And that's one of my projects. And Like, I never thought I would have this thing. It kind of just fell into my lap, but it's very interesting. So I'm really into weird cars like that. So people will email me now with, hey, look what I found. And sometimes I'll buy them.
Alex, where does Notre Dame fit into your story beyond you showing up to that 7:50 a.m. bell? Remember how early that used to be with the dirt or the grime still on your hands from spending all night, working on your old car.
So Notre Dame played a big role, considering it's a college prep school and I essentially didn't go to college. You'd think it didn't matter in my life, but it was a huge thing for me because I started obviously freshman year, I was at Notre Dame. And after the summer of my freshman year, my dad left and my parents got divorced. So my dad was gone and my mom was basically, she was stuck to raise, not stuck, but she had me and my two sisters and not enough money to pay for Notre Dame anymore. And so I was signed up to go to Lane Tech my sophomore year. Like, that was it. Like, it was over for me. I wasn't, which was very sad and disappointing because I'd made all my friends at Notre Dame and I loved it. And about 2 weeks before school started, I got Father Conyers called me and he's like, hey, we heard that your parents got divorced and we heard about your situation. What do you think about if we gave you a scholarship? Essentially, we'll pay for we'll cover half your tuition out of money that other Dons have donated. And you have to pay the other half. And my mom couldn't even pay the other half. So I was like, oh, I will do that in a heartbeat. So I went and got jobs. So I started working sophomore year. I started working at Burger King and I was paying tuition working at Burger King. And then I started working at auto parts stores, of course. But I worked about 20 hours a week in high school and I paid for my half of the tuition. And that was so cool. Like, I didn't think anyone outside of like a family member would care at all, about someone, especially not that the school is big, but there's 700-ish people at this time, 800 kids, whatever it was. So for them to like pluck me out of this group and to think about me was insane, And so I'm like, man, if you guys are going to pay half, I will do whatever it takes to pay my half. And I did. And I paid for high school in my half for sophomore, junior, and senior year. And with no regrets. I loved being there. And I loved it. I loved the culture was that family community culture. We all take care of each other. The alumni, programs are crazy. Like, people that have graduated 50 years ago are still involved in their high school, so I always thought that was so amazing. So yeah, Notre Dame played a big part and it gave me this feeling that you always kind of like take care of your own, and I've kept that with me forever, in everything I do, all my groups of either friends, coworkers, whatever. It's like, they turn into family to a certain point. And that's how Notre Dame, felt. It felt like a family and it still does.
How often beyond Notre Dame now with your career, are you recognized? Like, how often are you stopped on the street or someone pulls up next to you or you're at a gas station filling up whatever you're driving that day? Like,
yeah, it depends what I'm doing. So like, a lot of my cars
are celebrity, man.
A lot of my cars are really noticeable. So like, if I'm in one of the cool cars, I have like a little legit street car sticker on most of them. The car culture in Chicago is really good. It's one of the best car cities in the country, which is kind of abnormal considering we have 6 months of garbage weather. But during those 6 months of good weather, everybody's out. So I get recognized quite a bit when I'm in a cool car, like maybe 2 or 3 times a week, just randomly. Car events are obviously more. I mean, it's kind of a niche thing. Like, let's just put it this way. There's way more like football fans or major sports fans, than there are for enthusiast cars. Like, cars are kind of a little bit of a smaller group. So if I go to a car show, which is all car guys, like, most likely people have seen the videos at this point. I think I have 173 million channel views. So there's a good chance someone's seen something,
I was going to say, what would you say to me if I told you that Alex, the sophomore who bought a car at 15 and worked on it, all day and night, would have a YouTube channel as successful as it is, and he's got followers or subscribers from not just Chicago but all over the world? Like, what would you?
Yeah, dude, I would think it's impossible, and you had the wrong guy. Like, I seriously was just very happy with just being a mechanic for the rest of my life and just working on other people's cars and then having my, one or two little projects on the side. And I always dreamed of having like, father, son, daughter car projects in the garage, and just, that's it. My wife was a school teacher, and we just have just a very traditional, normal lifestyle. That's all I was pretty much set up to do, and I was good with it. So all of this is just like a massive bonus, and it's so cool. And I do a lot of charity stuff on the channel too, so we've been able to help people, and it's just been like the biggest positive, life-changing experience I've had, bar none. Like, it's pretty crazy. I still don't really believe it, but it's been a blast, and I hope I can just do this forever, basically.
Alex, awesome stuff. It's been great to catch up. Great to see you again.
Yeah.
If you're watching, listening, be sure to follow his YouTube channel at LegitStreetCars. Thank you, man. Awesome stuff.
Yeah.
That's
Thanks
it for this episode of the Doncast. Be sure to follow along. We got some more great guests coming up. And again, thank you to Alex. Check out his YouTube page. And as they say, once a Don, always a Don.